Birmingham Legion. Kaylor, welcome to the show. How are you tonight, sir?
Always good to sit down and talk to you, of course. I'm doing well.
That's great, and that's wonderful to see. I gotta tell you, Kaylor, um, this is probably a very monumental moment for the game in this country, because Major League Soccer, as we all know, the Division One league for the game in this country, wants or is actually having discussions within their board of governors or the owners that it's time to make a move to switching the schedule from the way they're doing it now, transferring to the international calendar, where they're going to start in August and end sometime in May or June. And for once, maybe this is the light at the end of the tunnel that all of us are hoping for, that this move can finally be put in the right direction for the game in this country.
Yeah, I am so heavily pro European schedule. And hopefully I'm back. My microphone unplugged. It went away for a second. But
That's okay.
I am insanely pro schedule change. And I was on the fence about it until the USL Super League did it. And they did this thing that people always seem to forget that can happen, which is a break during the cold months. And you can do that. You can take a break in the cold months and not play in those insanely dangerous conditions, while also avoiding playing in Orlando and Miami and Houston and Dallas and LA in, August and July. You can avoid the insane heat, and you can also get rid of the insane cold. And I'm sure we can talk about all the pros and the cons and all that stuff, but I'm just going to go ahead and call out both MLS and USL executives. The reason why they're going to say no is not for weather merit. They are afraid of big bad NFL. They are afraid of the big bad NFL because if we go to the European calendar, then we're going to have to compete with the NFL. Guess what? You're already competing with the NFL. You're already doing it. By the time you get to the most important part of your season, the finals, what is it? It's December, NFL December, when the games actually start to matter and people don't care about your league anymore. They're not going to see the forest through the trees. And they're going to say, well, we're afraid of the NFL when you're already losing your viewership to it.
Absolutely. I mean, we all have to understand this. They're competing no matter what, whether it be the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, even Major League Baseball. It does not matter what they do or who they go against. I mean, even you have to admit, Kaylor, college football, college basketball, that's always going to be competing against all the major North American sports leagues, because it doesn't matter what goes on. Look, Europe is lucky enough that they only have football, soccer to worry about. Sure, there's European hockey, but I don't think it's as big as what goes on here. But still, though, the point is, and you're correct, if you're going to have this monumental change and you take a break sometime around maybe halfway through December, you start a break, then you don't have to worry about competing against the NFL when it's the most important time. I mean, sure, the end of the regular season, the start of the playoffs, and then the Super Bowl, you clear those hurdles, without a doubt, the rest of the season will have all their eyes on MLS.
Can I tell you the USL Super League schedule this year?
Yes, go ahead.
August 23rd is when they start. That is, we're already playing soccer in MLS during that time. So you're not getting any new heat. August 23rd. Their last game is December 20th. Does that go a little bit late? Sure. Last year it was around December 7th, 17th. Guess what? The MLS finals last year ended on December 7th. So God forbid Minnesota hosts the final ever, or Colorado hosts the final ever, because it's on December 7th. Good luck. So they go all the way to December 20th, and then they start back on January 31st. Guess what? Your favorite club is already doing training camp in the middle of January. They're already there. And the best part about it, your final, what is the most important part of the season? Your final, right? The most important part of any season is when the champion is crowned. I think the only sport that has the argument is baseball, where opening day is a holiday. But is opening day in football the same as opening day in baseball? No, it's not. And so your final would be, if you follow the Super League calendar, would be the very first week of June. What are you competing with in June? Maybe some of the NBA finals. But be honest with me. Would you rather compete with the NBA finals or December NFL football or college football's conference championship or the beginning of NCAA football? Which would you rather compete with?
Exactly. Absolutely. And I think it's a smart move. And plus, at the same time, not just MLS that we have to look at, and like you've said already with USL, the women's league. I think it's also time for a championship and League One in USL to make this move
Yes.
too. And then, of course, when the first division league starts to come around after the World Cup is over next summer, this is a big challenge to have everything be aligned correctly. And we can finally say that we don't have to worry about watching our leagues performing during the international breaks. Now, obviously, this is still happening in MLS. I believe it's also happening in USL. You have our leagues playing when it should be the international team's time. That's why there's the international calendar, not just for the transfer windows, but to give our national teams that moment in the spotlight where whether it's a friendly, whether it's a World Cup qualifier, that there's no interference at all, from our leagues when we want to take a break from the club season so we can watch the international games being played, so we can see what our players are able to do against these teams, whether it's from our own confederation or teams from other confederations outside of CONCACAF.
Yeah, I'm having to look something up real quick, but something else that I have been privy to, luckily through the USL show, is I've gotten to talk to a lot of clubs and a lot of owners and a lot of agents, especially. And it's hard to get players to come to the US because during their transfer window, they would have to come in the middle of a season. So there are players like, while I was looking up, Toby Sims played for Harrogate Town this year, and he put in a full season. He got through the entire season this year, which is over 40 matches. He played over 40 matches for Harrogate this year. And as soon as the season was over, is already playing for the Greenville Triumph, where he's already played 10 matches for them. So he has played almost 50, 60 matches. He is going to finish the season playing almost 70 matches in one calendar year. Players don't want to do that. When you're playing at the League Two level, you're not going to represent club and country unless you're playing for a smaller country. Why would you put your body through 70 plus matches if you're not playing for international? We would love to say that MLS is, oh yeah, absolutely. We would love to bolster MLS up. Tell me right now what Spanish, French, English international is going to come play in MLS, and how many of them would come after playing a full season to join in the middle of the season, to go play international duty, and then come right back with no break. They're already doing it, but they give even less of a break. And you're looking at teams and players who are refusing to come to our country because they want to limit their chance of injury on already a career that you're lucky if you make it to 30 on. Why would you put extra miles on your legs for something that you're not even guaranteed to have
Exactly.
without rest?
Yep, exactly. Joining us right now, of course, my colleague at Beyond the 90, formerly of World Soccer Talk, Kartik Krishnara, now joining us tonight. Kartik, when you've heard the rumblings from the ownership group of MLS, all the owners, and we've heard the rumors too, at least 27 of the 30 owners in MLS wants to make this move to the international calendar. What did that mean for you?
Well, I've thought for years, guys, and great to be with you, Kaylor and Daniel. I thought for years, if you hear all these agitators out there talking about promotion and relegation and reforming the system, if you don't shift the calendar, you can't do any of that. I've made that point for years, even though I've been an advocate of promotion and relegation. I've said, look, it's one component of a larger uh, program of things that probably need to happen in this country. The first would be aligning transfer windows. Even if you actually could stay on the same calendar if you tweaked it a little bit, if you align the windows. But and as Kaylor's saying, I think very adroitly, there's been this issue that we've had in the past of especially if guys playing international tournaments in the summer, them joining after that. So that's I think that was the leading consideration was about that. I also think, truthfully, even though I know this means more of the season coincides with college football and the NFL, the business end of the season, if you will, the playoffs do not. You're competing with the NBA, NHL. Okay, they have their followings, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same sort of in market competition that you get in a lot of our core MLS markets, right? That you're competing with those sorts of sports. So I think that had something to do with it too, quite frankly. And I think there's been frustration that playoff ticket sales haven't been as high sometimes as regular season ticket sales with a lot of MLS clubs. I've been hearing that for years about that. They tried changing the playoff format to try and stimulate interest. It doesn't work. And the television ratings, well, now the streaming rate numbers have stunk for the MLS Cup playoffs. So some of MLS's best attended matches and most watched matches were in the spring, even though that's at the beginning of the season. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. I want to prove your point. Right? We're already doing the dumb stuff. The season this year for MLS started on February 22nd. They reported training camp in the middle of January. So what? Great. You're missing the Super Bowl. Awesome. Guess what? You're going to play through the entire year. And the only months that a European calendar and the already MLS calendar would not line up on, technically, is July and part of August, except we're already playing right now because we have the Leagues Cup. So everything that they're already doing is coinciding. The only difference is that the finals would now be when they have no competition. They would rather go head to head with the finals with the NFL, college football, college basketball, the things that are the major pools in this country. They would rather go head to head in business time when you want the most eyes on your product, and they're just not. They're afraid of the regular season fall off. When don't you want people watching when your product is supposed to be the best?
Yeah, exactly. And that was sort of the thinking when I worked in the NASL, Daniel. And you remember I came on your show to talk about apertura, clausura, and trying to flip the calendar, which the league, I left the league and they never got around to doing. But that there was also, especially for a lower division, So USL is going to have to think about this now that MLS is making this move. You get completely lost in the weeds if you're competing. Unfortunately, this is the reality. I'm not condoning it and saying, oh well, American football is better than baseball or basketball, but you just don't want to compete with it. That's and particularly here in the Southeast, the one I remember David Beckham's final game in Major League Soccer, the MLS Cup against Houston that year, was at the same time as the SEC championship game. Now, how can you schedule that way? Seriously,
you can't.
Yeah, absolutely, gentlemen. No, you can't. You really cannot. And, that's the one thing that's heartbreaking. It's like, sure, you have the diehards that will go to these games, but the point is you want to have those that you want to turn into diehards to fall in love with this sport and this league. But the problem is this now is that they don't want to understand that the American soccer fan is a lot smarter than they are. Because this is the reality of the situation too, guys, is this. Okay, you have the Premier League starting in August. You also have Bundesliga starting in August, Serie A starting in August. Late August will be La Liga because they always start maybe a week or two later than England does. But still, though, the month of August starts all these leagues. And doesn't it make sense when you have everything going for you from like 7 a.m. here on the East Coast all the way through till maybe 2 a.m. on the East Coast, like after LA Galaxy versus whoever is done, or LAFC, whoever is done, Orange County SC, whoever is done, Spokane Velocity, whoever is done, because as we all agree, this is going to have to be big changes across the entire board of American soccer. Because if we can be aligning ourselves, not just the little issues and the little, the little mechanisms of what works, what's been working for such a long period of time in the rest of the world, except for here, I mean, it's really a no-brainer, isn't it, Kaylor?
Yeah, and I'm trying to pull up one other thing really fast. Let's act like they got their crap together and it's happening this year, right? We're doing it. Again, I'm using the USL Super League as the example because they are on the European calendar. They are our example right now. The final was on June 14th. Do you know what would happen in a couple weeks after that? The U.S. hosting the World Cup. A few weeks after MLS is big, look at us. Look at us. Look at our final. We just had an awesome product. Look at it. How amazing this is. We just had put on this product. And guess what? In 2 weeks, we're hosting the World Cup. And guess what? When the World Cup final happens in the United States, what's happening in 3 weeks? The start of the MLS season. Talk about a better lead-in. You're not going to get the same lead-in. Oh, look, it's going to be we're stopping the season in the middle of the year. And, oh, look, the World Cup's happening. I can't wait to go watch my 14th place favorite MLS team not compete for the playoffs.
Yep.
Right? At the very least, to start the season, the teams and fans of people who are in markets, they can at least tell themselves that we have a chance.
Let me follow up on Kaylor's point on the USL Super League, because this is not something I realized until USL Super League launched this year and played. And obviously, Daniel, as you know, Beyond the 90 cover two teams closely. There's going to be a third this year with Jacksonville. Sporting Jacks was going to go up for their friendly on Sunday, and unfortunately that's been scrubbed against Wrexham, but I'll be up for their opener on the 23rd against DC Power. Kaylor, this is interesting. I did not realize until talking to the Tampa Bay Sun and to Fort Lauderdale United both that playing on this calendar actually helped them with youth soccer.
Yes,
their academy teams being aligned with the calendar, and then getting youth soccer girls teams to buy tickets. That's not something I had even thought about in my advocacy for calendar change, but it's another kind of collateral benefit of it. And that's something I think will help on the men's side too.
Yeah. And one thing I want to throw out there, because I do need to go somewhat soon, people are going to throw out well, it's cold in Minnesota. It's cold in Minnesota. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Why not steal a book out of Major League Baseball? They have been doing schedules longer than any other sport. They have been going since before the 1900s on scheduling. They got it. Do you know what they do? They take the Chicago Cubs and the Minnesota Twins and the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox and the whoever, and they say, go down south for a little while, for 2 weeks. And do you know what you get in the middle of the season, in the middle of the summer? You get to go home when it's cooler outside than it is in Tampa, than it is in Miami. And Miami has a retractable roof, but follow me here, right? You don't have to go to those places when it's 1 billion degrees. Congratulations, Minnesota United. You don't have to play when it's 10 degrees outside, although it's kind of a competitive advantage, and maybe they want that. But you don't have to go out there. What you can do is we'll start you down in Miami, and then you'll go down to Houston, and they'll come up to you when it's cooler. And no one's going to notice. Everybody's going to say, well, that's not fair. We want to have our legs and we want to have our first games at home. Congratulations. Your first games are at home. No one came because it's 10 degrees. Cool. Just go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Minnesota because their fans, going back 10 years, Daniel knows this, back when I was working in NASL, were the most vocal in opposition to this. And I would tell them exactly what you just said, Kaylor. March and April, you can play in Florida, you can play in Arizona, you can play in Texas, wherever. And then summer, you have a block of games quite frankly, in the Southeast, it's raining every day. It's really hot. You don't want to play outdoors in Atlanta or in Charlotte in the summer. Honestly, it's awful. Or even DC. DC United's had this problem since the beginning of MLS since '96 with a lot of thunderstorms, a lot of heat and humidity. FC Dallas has it also, and then obviously now Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, etc. So, and in NASL, we have the problem with Fort Lauderdale and Tampa Bay every year with thunderstorms and postponements. So the weather thing is an issue in the Southeast playing through the summer also, which the Minnesota fans in particular, I don't want to pick on one fan base, but they seem to be the most vocal always about this. They
are the coldest fan base. They have to deal with the most cold. So it makes sense.
True. Yeah, it's fair. That's fair.
But we also don't talk about like the Miami side of this where it is dangerously hot. Again, I'm a USL guy. We'll go back to USL. Phoenix can't kick off until 8, 9 o'clock at night, or else people will die. Las Vegas, granted, the lights are a bit of a used to be. They're more serious now, but they used to be a circus show as much as a football team. So they started a match at midnight. Not a joke. Look it up. They played at midnight, partially for publicity, partially because people would die. Would you rather go play at midnight because it's too hot and too dangerous to play? Or would you rather be a little bit chilly?
So let's talk specifically about Miami this year, Miami FC, because they're playing on the turf at FIU, and they have an old team, a team got a lot of guys from Argentina. I'm already hearing rumblings. I don't work for the club anymore. I just want to make that clear. Obviously, have worked for them in the past, but I'm still kind of in the family. I'm hearing rumblings from Ricardo Silva's people that the roster, you can't construct a roster like this for the summer months in South Florida because they're not athletic enough. They're too old. So the only way we can solve it is if next season we have a similar club, we need to kick games off at 9 o'clock locally rather than 7. It is that hot and humid in the South in this time of year.
Yep. No, it's very true. I'm living down here in South Florida myself now, so I can definitely agree with what Kartik is saying there. And even when I was living back in New York, New Jersey, in the summertime, when it gets humid and sticky, forget it. And you have to hope and pray you don't get a lot of thunderstorms. And if you do, you're going to get rainouts. Even though Sports Illustrated Stadium, formerly known as Red Bull Arena, it does drain very nicely and there's no issues. Still, though, you're still going to get one of those waterlogged games. Forget about that. At the old RFK Stadium at DC United, there's at least 6 puddles. And they're not the small ones. They're talking about big freaking puddles. And then, they build Audi Field. But then I was there to cover the Red Bulls road game in DC. And as I'm halfway walking to Audi Field, the deluge broke. And I was completely drenched from head to toe. Even though I got into the stadium, I was able to thankfully dry off and everything. But there was puddles again on the field, and it's a brand new stadium. I couldn't believe what I saw. And then was it a wall of water going down from the second deck down to the walkway of the ground level, which was crazy.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was crazy.
Stadium has always had these problems, and so even when the Rowdies Indy game, I think it was a month. Well, they just played in Indy last week, but about a month and a half ago, a midweek game got postponed, and they ended up kicking off around 9:30. But part of the reason they couldn't kick off once the rain cleared was the drainage was so poor at Al Lang. And that's a whole other issue, right? They had a hurricane last year. They had stadium damage. The Rowdies had to end the season last season playing at IMG and started this season first 5 matches on the road. But the drainage is a big concern. And maybe this is my ignorance. I don't know how the ice and snow necessarily affects the pitches in Minnesota and places like that, the places we're talking about, Foxborough. But I've seen such horrible problems with the pitches in the Southeast because of drainage that I think it's also a safety concern in many cases.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
no,
fellas.
that's very true. Yeah,
I got to roll. I got to get
Sure.
Oh, good, Kaylor.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Kaylor, and have a good night. And I'll talk to you soon again. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kaylor.
Thank you. And once again, that's Kaylor Hodges from Hammering Down Podcast, covering Birmingham Legion of USL Champions.